Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Hello, this is Jerry Gillies of MoneyLoveBlog.com. A lot of people have asked over the years when there's going to be an audiobook version of MoneyLove. Well, finally, it will be happening in the not-too-distant future, and this audio is sort of a preview. It's the first chapter of MoneyLove, recorded for the very first time. Chapter 1. There is a powerful and persistent concept running through this book. It is not a new idea, and I did not invent it, but this entire volume is aimed at helping you accept and believe it. It is a basic truth, proven time and time again by people in all walks of life. I don't intend to hold it out as a tantalizing reward for reading my book. You deserve to hear it right now, at the beginning of your efforts toward a more prosperous life. It is the core of prosperity consciousness that in order to be as wealthy as you want to be, you need just three things. 1, a clear vision of what you want. 2, the belief that you will get it. 3, practical skills to put that belief into action. The reality of money, the basic reality about money, is that it's unreal. Money is a myth. It has no value in and of itself. It is a medium of exchange for goods, services, and ideas. It is a beautiful human invention that most people haven't figured out how to use yet. Myths are wonderful things made to be enjoyed, but if you try to embrace them, you'll just end up hugging air. So it is with money. For example, one of the most romanticized eras in recent history has been the Great Depression of the 1930s. People who struggled through that period love to recount tales of hardship and warn it can happen again. Now, I'm not saying the tales of pain and deprivation aren't true, just that they're not true at this moment, and they may never be true again. So living your life as if you were in the middle of the Great Depression is not seeing life clearly. It is not seeing the reality of money. I have a friend, a very talented therapist, who cannot seem to stop the treadmill she is on. No matter how much money she earns, and it's quite a bit, she never feels secure. No matter how high her reputation, and it's high indeed, she has the fear that her clients will stop coming or not be able to afford to come. Her whole life is governed by her vivid memories of the 1930s, and she has said to me, no one who ever lived through the Depression can ever feel completely relaxed about money. I don't believe that, and have seen it disproved hundreds of times. The Depression had nothing to do with money. It was a massive collapse of the myth. It was a powerful display of poverty consciousness in which people lost their faith in themselves and the economy. Did anybody survive that era with prosperity consciousness? Of course, though some of them don't like to talk about it, feeling those who suffered might be resentful. Many people made a lot of money during that period. The economy had collapsed, but personal initiative was still present in isolated pockets throughout the impoverished land. The point is, the general state of the economy doesn't have to affect your personal financial situation. You can be rich beyond your wildest dreams. What is your reaction to that thought? Close your eyes and imagine a voice telling you over and over again, you can be rich beyond your wildest dreams. Visualize the income and lifestyle you would like. Ask yourself if there is any reason why you shouldn't have them. Make sure you visualize what you really want, not what someone else wants for you. It's also important to keep your deepest specific aspirations to yourself. Otherwise, you will dilute your personal imagery and provide other people with an opportunity to tell you why your plans won't work, which many others will be only too happy to do. Do not get anxious or upset if your dreams don't materialize immediately. This isn't magic you're performing, but simple, effective preparation for prosperity. And remember, those who have achieved great financial success describe their most exciting moments as the ones leading up to their attainment of wealth, rather than the actual moment of achievement. Once you have a strong idea of what you'll do when you get the money, you can begin to focus on a specific amount that will allow you to do what you want. Don't just ask for enough to survive or to be comfortable. For 6 years, I kept myself at a subsistence level by focusing only on survival. A major breakthrough in my prosperity consciousness was the moment when I realized I could ask for a surplus as well as mere survival. Instead of focusing on $200 coming in to pay the rent, and it usually did come in, I now focus on $20,000 coming in, so I can take a year off. I know it may be difficult to believe at this point, but that $20,000 came just as easily as the $200. As you begin to experiment with MoneyLove techniques, you'll find this will be true for you too. People who say, well, I don't want much money, just enough to get by, really don't love themselves enough to feel they deserve more. They either fear money itself or fear that they'll have to do something unpleasant to get it. In addition to lack of self-esteem, these are some of the factors that cause people to avoid wealth. It's a matter of asking yourself 3 questions. 1, do I want to be rich? 2, do I believe I deserve to be rich? 3, do I believe I can be rich? Remember the second item of the secret I call the core of prosperity consciousness, the belief that you will get it. This involves answering the 3 questions above with I want, I deserve, I can. If you don't feel you deserve wealth, you won't enjoy life, no matter how much money you eventually have. Once you begin to feel deserving, you will feel desire. Most of the books and courses purporting to teach you how to make a lot of money list desire as the strongest factor. Some of them, however, paint this desire almost as an obsession. I suggest this is as destructive as believing you don't deserve prosperity. In fact, overwhelming desire may be an indication of poverty consciousness. Obsessive desire is hard work to build up at an emotional level. Prosperity consciousness is as easy as breathing. You may have already decided you want to be rich. In fact, it's probably why you bought this book. Once that becomes a clear vision, you won't have to work on it anymore. Here's another little exercise in creative imagination. Make a list of 10 reasons why you want to be rich, and then make a list of 10 reasons why you deserve to be rich. A decision. Once you decide you are going to be as wealthy as you want to be, you have made a commitment. Every decision is a commitment. I'm not talking about wishes, and I'm not talking about promises. I am talking about decisions, which are active moves you make in a certain direction. Decision is the beginning of action. At the very core of your consciousness, there is a decision residing: to be poor or to be rich. This is based on your past programming. It may sound simplistic to say it, but once you make a decision to be rich, you are well on your way to your first million. And it is simple, not easy, but simple. It's not easy because of all the negative material you've absorbed through the years. Now, this must be overcome before you can move forward. This mind-sweeping operation is crucial to developing prosperity consciousness. You may already have had an inkling of the possibilities. You may already be excited about your potential prosperity. You may already believe you want to be rich, you deserve to be rich, and you can be rich. But that belief is not enough until you accept it at a deep emotional level of consciousness. The reason most books on positive life changes haven't worked for most people who've read them is simply because they have overlooked the obstacles and not offered techniques to eliminate them. Until you identify and confront these emotional obstacles, you won't be emotionally free to achieve and enjoy the wealth you deserve. The obstacles. Prosperity consciousness is a positive belief system. Poverty consciousness is a negative belief system. At each moment, you can only have one primary belief, one primary feeling, one primary idea. When you have two beliefs, two feelings, two ideas, the subconscious will accept only the dominant one. And since your poverty consciousness has been with you a lot longer and gotten a firmer foothold than your prosperity consciousness, it will tend to dominate unless you put up a fight for control of your own mind. For poverty consciousness is always the result of what others have told you, while prosperity consciousness is the result of what you tell yourself. You must remove as much of your negative programming as possible. You'll never remove it all. Wait, just wait a minute. Can this be true? Can an author of a book on self-development actually admit that you won't be able to become perfect? Absolutely. I believe this book will help you get rid of most of your negative programming, but there's no way you will eliminate it all. You are a human being, not a machine. Part of the beauty of being human lies in being imperfect, and therefore unique. From time to time, no matter how strong your prosperity consciousness, a negative fear, doubt, or guilt will creep up from your subconscious. You will have the tools to deal with these little emotional gremlins, but accept the fact that you will never completely eliminate them. A further thought on perfection. People who try to be perfect are never original, never produce really creative and valuable ideas. In order to be perfect, you have to do it the way everybody has always done it before. Psychologists have long recognized the perfectionist complex as one of the most destructive to human growth and development. In terms of financial success, many people use perfection as an excuse, making a statement such as, "When I learn to do it perfectly, I'll start being successful." It's a way to prevent getting started. Waiting for perfection in any aspect of your life will usually guarantee a deficiency, a permanent deficiency in that area. Many people manifest their perfection complex by making if-only excuses about their lack of prosperity. If only I had more education. If only the economy were better. If only I could do it all over again. If only I had chosen a more lucrative profession. If only I had better breaks. If only I had been luckier. If only I hadn't married so young. If only my boss appreciated me. If only my parents had money. If only I could clear up my debts. It isn't the man or woman who has it perfect who succeeds. People who have had all or most of the problems listed above have still made it. The attitude that seems to provide the surest path to success is one that says, sure, things aren't perfect. I'm not perfect, but I can do it. People who make money often make mistakes and even have major setbacks, but they believe they will eventually prosper, and they see every setback as a lesson to be applied in their move towards success. None of the select group of people Dr. Abraham Maslow termed self-actualized was perfect. They suffered moments of guilt and sadness, moments of fear and self-doubt. These moments were few, and the self-actualized people were able both to acknowledge and to accept that they were not perfect. Because of this capacity, they willingly took risks, were not afraid to make mistakes, and therefore were able to innovate, to do what had never been done before. The perfectionist is at best a superb copycat. Poverty consciousness. So let's look at the attributes of poverty consciousness. People who are caught up in poverty consciousness, 1, don't really know what they want. 2, avoid responsibility for their own failure or success. 3, always put things off. 4, don't feel deserving. 5, have limited curiosity. 6, don't feel appreciated. 7, are indifferent. 8, are misers, hoarders, and prophets of gloom. 9, rarely enjoy spending money on themselves. 10, feel guilty when they don't have money, and guiltier when they do. Most of all, however, poverty-conscious people have an unrealistic view of the power of money. They use money as a scapegoat, supporting the myth that they are unable to do a lot of the things they want to do because of lack of money. A number of my relatives were very upset when I moved to Florida and a life of ease at the age of 32. They had been telling themselves that they would move to Florida once they had enough money. As I am writing this, 6 years later, they all have much more money than they did 6 years ago, and none of them has moved to Florida, though they're still talking about doing it eventually. That's a key word in poverty consciousness, eventually. Using it means you are not willing to do something now, or feel you cannot do it now, or are afraid to do it now. The difference between poverty and prosperity consciousness can be summed up in 2 quotes from famous prosperous men. Jackie Gleason, in a TV interview with NBC's Tom Snyder, said, "I was poor, but I didn't know I was poor, and I always knew I'd make it." And the late Mike Todd said, "I've never been poor, only broke. Being poor is a frame of mind. Being broke is a temporary situation. I can't afford it." "I can't afford it" is one of the favorite comments of poverty-conscious people. It's often a lie, almost always an untruth. I was talking in early 1977 with Dr. Wayne Dyer, who wrote Your Erroneous Zones and almost single-handedly turned it into a multi-million-dollar bestseller by traveling around the country in his car and appearing on every radio and television show that would have him, even in the smallest towns. We were talking about efforts to promote my books, and he suggested I take off on a cross-country promotion tour, just as he had. I said, "I really can't afford that right now," and I'll never forget his response, coming directly from his prosperity consciousness. I taped that conversation so I can share it with you word for word. He said, "You've really got to stop thinking about what you can afford to do, because you can really afford to do anything that you decide you want to do." Largely as a result of that conversation with Wayne Dyer, I have spent much of 1978 traveling around the country promoting my books. At the time, I related this story to a friend who responded, "Wayne Dyer has a fortune now. Why didn't he offer to give you financial support for your trip?" "Because," I answered, "he believed in himself. Wayne Dyer was willing to believe in me. He knew I could do it. He made me aware of some of my own poverty consciousness and gave me the greatest gift any human can give another. He showed me it was possible and encouraged me to do it myself. No one's poverty consciousness was ever cured with a dose of money. If that were possible, the government's poverty programs would have been a lot more successful. The only way to cure poverty, which is a state of mind, is emotionally. and each person has to cure his own. All anyone else can do is offer support, encouragement, and positive examples. Poverty consciousness is what we do to sabotage ourselves. There's a part of you we could call the inner pauper that will always come up with excuses, indecisions, and catastrophic expectations. The inner pauper is always motivated by fear. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of never making it, fear of losing it. Fear causes us to close our minds in tight little balls. Confidence allows us to open our minds wide, letting fresh ideas in. A woman friend of mine was very rich. She had earned it all herself in real estate. Rather than freeing her, this wealth tied her up in emotional knots. She was single, but wanted to find someone to share her life. Because she was afraid of being loved for her money, she refused to date any man who wasn't rich. She finally ended up with a millionaire who kept trying to get her to turn over all her business interests to him. What she hadn't realized was that a man who had compulsively strived for a great deal of money was exactly the type to marry her for money instead of love. After her divorce, she started dating a symphony violinist, earning about $15,000 a year. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but she's certainly smiling a lot more now. Whenever I run a seminar or workshop on MoneyLove, there are always one or two participants who are obviously being directed by their inner pauper. They sit smirking as if to say, "This is ridiculous. Changing attitudes about money won't get you money." These are the very people who will never use the MoneyLove tools and never even give themselves a chance to find out if they work. At the other end of the spectrum are those who sit with a calm look that says, "I believe I can use these tools and build my own prosperity, and I'm going to start right now." Inevitably, whenever I get a chance to follow up those who have attended my programs, these are the people who report tremendous success in achieving higher income and more pleasure in life. I find that when people say a workshop or book won't work, they are really saying they don't believe they can change. Just as when someone says he or she can't afford something within financial reach, this is a person who really doesn't believe he or she will ever be able to afford it. It's all part of a built-in self-destruction mechanism we all have to watch out for. Dr. Barton Knapp, a noted Philadelphia psychologist, says, "If you're going to do yourself in, your attitude toward money will serve as well as any other tool." Many people are committing what I call temporary suicide by shutting off potentially alive and enriching moments for fear of what it will cost, or feeling that they don't deserve to fully live and enjoy. The single most important financial freedom is knowing you can have a good and full life whether you are rich or not. Prosperity is living easily and happily in the real world whether you have money or not. Poverty consciousness can prevent you from living easily and happily, and you have to make an effort to eliminate it. Wishing won't make it go away. Parental poverty messages. Most of the seeds that sprout into poverty consciousness come from parents. Dr. Daniel Malamud, a clinical psychologist in New York, has developed a concept called seed sentences, which he says are messages from parents and significant others in our early lives. The messages have a potent effect on the way we see the world and ourselves in relationship to the world. Some seed sentences that may have led to an adult case of poverty consciousness are, "When you grow up, you'll learn the value of money. Save your pennies for a rainy day. If you went through the Depression like we did, don't spend your money foolishly. Clean your plate. There are starving children in Europe." This last one also led to a lot of cases of obesity. Can you think of the money messages your parents gave you? Sit down with a piece of paper and remember what they had to say about money and about your spending, earning, or saving it. Perhaps a little essay entitled, "My Parents Told Me Money." What were your parents' attitudes toward money? If you had to pick 2 words to describe the basic money attitudes of each of your parents, what would those 4 words be? And have you incorporated any of them into your current beliefs about money? How would your parents feel about your becoming prosperous? Visualize telling them you've just become a millionaire. See their faces in their comments. Would they be happy for you? Or would they be worried because you were now more likely to be a robbery victim, or to have tax problems, or to spend it all foolishly? Parents are very good at creating what-abouts. What about security for your old age? What about, God forbid, a serious medical problem? What about protecting yourself against inflation? What about the children's education? What about us? We're not getting any younger, you know. What about your responsibilities and obligation? Any of these sound familiar? Another way parents have of inspiring a negative view of money is by telling children they don't have time to play with them or to have fun because they're too busy earning money to feed them. The implication here is that everyone would starve if someone weren't out with the proverbial nose to the grindstone. A parent's statement, "I'm doing it all for you," is really a statement that says, "I'm doing it for my own neurotic reasons and using you as an excuse." One of the great metaphoric phrases of all time has been appropriated by parents to conjure up an image of the difficulty in making money. Money doesn't grow on trees. What that has to do with any real-life situation escapes me now, as it did as a child. I know money doesn't grow on trees. I also knew that my parents, though of modest means, could afford 10 cents for an ice cream cone. It's as if you asked someone for love and they said, "You can't find love in an apple." It's a way of avoiding responsibility, of avoiding saying no. What your parents actually did in terms of money also affects your emotional attitude. I will be forever grateful for 2 things my parents did that have dramatically affected the way I've lived my life. First, even if they had only $200 in the bank when vacation time came in the summer, they'd withdraw it and we'd go off to the seashore for a week or 2. I remember my father saying that vacations were important and making disdainful comments about neighbors who spent their vacations fixing up the house instead of relaxing. The other thing was unusual for their lower middle income level and unique among all their friends and neighbors. Every week, no matter what the current financial situation, we ate at a restaurant on both Saturday and Sunday nights. They weren't necessarily expensive restaurants, but in the post-war era of the late 40s and early 50s, going out to eat wasn't the national pastime it's since become. Those 2 habits, those 2 examples of prosperity consciousness had a profound impact on me. On the other hand, we had some relatives who had another money situation. The father of the family believed in keeping his financial affairs to himself. Even his wife didn't know how much he had in the bank. When he said, "We can't afford it," she had no way to be a part of that decision. I remember going to the movies with the kids and watching them unwrap their meager supply of coins, usually enough for admission only. I treated for popcorn and candy. My parents had always discussed the family finances openly and honestly. I knew what was coming in and was consulted, even at the age of 10, about major purchases. I felt a part of the process. When my father passed away, I knew where all the papers were and exactly how much money there was in savings accounts and insurance. when the secretive father of that family of relatives died, the widow and children went through painful hassles trying to get everything sorted out. They hadn't even known whether he had written a will. I think a parent's keeping financial information so hidden and so separate from the mainstream of family sharing contributes to a poverty consciousness that stresses money as a thing apart from all other facets of life. Some parents have a lack of trust of each other and their children, with a fear-motivated feeling that they must keep a financial hold over the others in the family. Perhaps this includes distrust of the children and a fear that they'll be considered more valuable dead than alive, particularly if details are shared about insurance and wills. Another person I know has a mother who has a $1 million business while her child struggles along in poverty consciousness, trying to keep the grandchild well fed and clothed. The mother pours all the money back into the business, saying, "It'll all be yours and your son's someday." Wouldn't it be delightful if that mother could feel prosperous enough to take out $10,000 or $20,000, which she could easily afford, and present it to her daughter and grandson as a gift of love? Even though I am well aware of the emotional fears and negative programming that lead to such actions on the part of parents, I still find it depressing that so many of them seem to prefer that their children should enjoy their money after they die, rather than be able to share that joy while they're still alive. Another sad factor is the passing of poverty consciousness from generation to generation. I think it's important to state here that you can never change your parents' poverty consciousness. You can change only your own, and part of that change is being able to forgive your parents. They're doing the best they can. They may very well have been victims of their own parents' poverty consciousness. It's a well-known and tragic psychological fact that some people fail just to get even with their parents, as if to say, "See what a rotten job you did raising me." Others avoid success to rob parents of the satisfaction of being proud. What many don't realize is that putting emotional energy into these negative efforts will produce only self-defeat. This is also true when you envy or hate people who have achieved success. Some people look at another's success as a form of punishment, as if that successful person were intentionally out-achieving them to show them up. Others enjoy and root for the success of another person, realizing it's an opportunity to learn by example and proof that success is possible. Look within your own heart now and decide whether you allow yourself to be put down or inspired by the financial success of other people. If you are fortunate enough to have parents who are still alive, you may find them resisting your move toward prosperity. You're going to have to take some risks in order to make progress, and parents can always manage to come up with some good reasons not to take risks. Understand that they may just be feeling insecure about your changing in any substantial way, and make no mistake about it, prosperity consciousness will change you. Reassure your parents, if possible. If they're always complaining that you need more financial security, it's just because they don't love you enough to trust you and to believe that you are capable and talented enough to survive. You are probably much stronger than your parents ever suspected, and much more talented and capable. Eventually, when they are exposed to the joy you feel, when you take your life and your fortune into your own hands, they'll begin to understand. Until then, just love them, forgive them, and don't expect anything from them. They already gave you the greatest gift of all, life itself. And with that gift came the most sophisticated money-making machine in all the universe, your brain. Affirmations. An affirmation is a declaration you make to yourself of something you believe or hope to believe. As the first step to substantially changing your money programming, you'll be working with affirmations, which I call prosperity proclamations. They will become a major tool in your battle against poverty consciousness. The repetition of positive and alive messages to your subconscious is the only foolproof way to reprogram your brain. Remember, when you have two ideas, the subconscious will accept the dominant one. Repetition is one way to make sure the good guys win, that the positive money thoughts replace the negative self-defeating ones. You are using the power of suggestion. But more important, you are getting into the habit of positive action. Positive thinking sounds great, and it's necessary for success, but you can positive think from now until 2050 without changing your basic habits. It takes action to move forward, and thought that isn't followed by action is worthless when it comes to changing your life. The prosperity proclamations are the activating force. You can nod your head and agree with a lot of what I say throughout this book, but until you start reprogramming your subconscious and thereby become committed and emotionally involved in your own prosperity, you will be doomed to failure. Realize that a part of you will resist any major change, that the part I call the inner pauper is frightened of change. Using affirmations, positive programming words fed directly into your computer-like brain is an important breakthrough, a vital indication that you have made a positive decision to change your money attitudes. Before going on with the subject of affirmations and providing more guidelines for their use so you can start functioning at a new level of financial awareness immediately, let's pay attention to your reaction to this concept of affirmations. For instance, if I said to you, just repeat the phrase, "I feel wonderful," every day, and you will begin to feel better, what would your reaction be to my comment? Would you feel I'd gone off the deep end? Would you feel I'm promoting magic? Would you feel it couldn't possibly work? Or would you try it and see how it felt, and then decide whether it worked or not? The big secret. Let me tell you a fantastic, immense secret about human consciousness. I suppose it's the most powerful idea contained in this book, and one that countless men and women have used to change their lives. If you pay attention to it, it can help you change yours. The secret? Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between facts and imagined facts. Now, this means if you present imagined material strongly and vividly enough, it will be accepted as real. This is why your body responds with all the physiological attributes of danger, including increased respiration, muscle tension, adrenaline release, secretion of blood lactate, which is related to stress, increased skin moisture, and rapid pulse when you fear an imagined danger. This means that imagining you are wealthy and are producing lots of money will convince your brain, which will convince your body, and you will start to look, breathe, walk, and act like a rich person. Sure, it's easier to feel rich if you're staring at a pile of $1,000 bills you're counting, but imagining those bills can be just as effective. All it takes is imagination and concentration. I have been using personal affirmations in my workshops. I have never once seen them fail as a potent tool for change once the person starts using them on a regular basis. People can come up with all sorts of reasons not to use them. It is beneath my dignity. Well, it escapes me how an affirmation can be any more beneath someone's dignity than living in financial turmoil or talking about money troubles, or believing there is a limit to how much money he or she is entitled to. If it works, why doesn't everyone do it? Indeed, well, it does work, and I suppose the reason everybody doesn't do it is because not everyone is ready for prosperity. You bought this book, or at least started reading it, so evidently you have decided you are ready to work on your money situation at an emotional level. I'd feel silly. Well, there's nothing sillier than not being wealthy on this rich planet with its growing economy. Doing something about it is the least silly thing any sensible person can do. But I want some practical suggestions. This is one of the most common objections. Some people come to one of my prosperity consciousness seminars expecting to be told how to balance their checkbook, or buy corporate bonds, or deal in commodities. The whole premise is, of course, that wealth is not material gain, but a state of mind. It therefore can be easily achieved only by starting with the mind and its basic attitudes, which may be changed if they are obstacles to prosperity. So much for the objections. As I write these words, I am excited for you, for I know how delighted and surprised you will be after using your prosperity proclamations. These are intentional beliefs you will start programming into your consciousness for the specific purpose of changing your negative attitudes about money. A lot of people attribute metaphysical powers to affirmations. I make no such claims, though I have seen amazing things accomplished in all areas of life with this method. I assert that these are positive signals you are sending your brain so it can begin moving in a direction that will provide you with all the money you want. If more than that happens for you, consider it a happy fringe benefit. Don't question it, just enjoy it. Again, we do not begin to know the total power of the mind. Repeated statements and sayings have done much to form the person you are right now, including the negative, non-productive, non-creative parts of you. Using the prosperity proclamations is merely a way of reversing that process in a highly accelerated way. I am going to share 7 prosperity proclamations with you. You may reword them if a variation feels better. You may eventually choose to replace them with your own, perhaps with more specific programming. There are several factors to consider when creating affirmations. First, they must be alive messages, not wishes. I want more money is a wish, not an affirmation. It must be a positive statement, personalized, to the point, easy to understand, and preferably one that will conjure up pictures in your mind. It must be action-oriented, with a feeling of movement of aliveness. The prosperity proclamations. 1. A lot more money is flowing into my life. I deserve it and will use it for my good and that of others. One way of ensuring that this programming is received at a deep emotional level is to keep track of your emotional reactions to it. Repeat the sentences 10 times to yourself and stop and see whether you're absorbing it, whether it feels right at a gut level. Take a deep breath and see whether you can feel the proclamation click into your subconscious. If you have a negative reaction, don't repress it. Bring it out. Bring it out into the open. Take a piece of paper and write out the first prosperity proclamation 20 times, leaving room for emotional comments. Then decide what your reactions are, and write them in even if they are negative. For example, a lot more money is flowing into my life. I deserve it and will use it for my good and that of others. I don't know. What did I ever do to deserve this money? A lot more money is flowing into my life. I deserve it and will use it for my good and that of others. Come on now, where's all this wonderful money coming from? If you write your emotional response to each of the 20 repetitions, you'll find that your reaction will start to get more positive. You may want to write your response after writing each positive statement, rather than waiting until you write all 7 proclamations. The prosperity proclamations must be as believable as possible. Most of them are money messages that explain themselves. From now on, I will give some explanation of the particular choice of words. For instance, in the first proclamation, a lot more money is flowing into my life, I deserve it, and will use it for my good and that of others. The first sentence evokes an image of money moving toward you. This can be fun to visualize as you say or write the proclamation. Imagine the money coming to you in a river of bills. Part of believing you can become prosperous is believing that a lot more money is coming to you. I deserve it is something you have to feel to accept it openly without guilt or apology, and will use it for my good and that of others takes it a step further and allows you to conjure up images of how you'll use the money, giving yourself and others pleasure. 2. I have an unlimited number of valuable ideas in my consciousness. This is absolutely true, and the sooner you believe it, the sooner you can start bringing those ideas up to the surface. I remember one woman in a workshop who complained she wasn't creative. Her husband supported this view because he did some writing and liked to think of himself as the only creative person in the family. I had her make up a proclamation, just suggesting that it should be a sentence that, if she believed it, would change her attitude about her own creativity. She came up with, "I am more creative than I ever believed possible." At first, she found this hard to believe, but she was persistent and kept it up. She had always wanted to work with her hands, so she tried macrame. She told me she didn't even feel the proclamation working, but one day she just sort of knew it was true. Her macrame work in just 4 months got good enough for her to sell in a local flea market. Then an interior designer saw her work and hired her to create original macrame pieces to blend in with his interiors. Within a year, she was making a substantial income from her creativity. Even I was surprised at how fast it worked for her. But that's just one of many examples of the power of the mind. You might picture with this affirmation ideas crowding together in your subconscious, just bursting to get through to your conscious mind. 3. I love what I do, and that love brings me all the money I want. Now, this is one of the core principles of MoneyLove, coming up in detail in the chapter entitled Work Love. This could put you in touch with some dissatisfaction over what you do to earn a living, but repeating it, even under these circumstances, can have a potent effect on your life and your work. It's also valuable to understand that the loving energy you put into your work is what provides you with a large income. 4. Every dollar I circulate enriches the economy and comes back to me multiplied. This prosperity proclamation is a powerhouse. It can change your entire attitude towards spending money. You'll understand it more clearly after reading Chapter 3, and the money goes round and round, but it doesn't have to make complete sense for it to begin to work on your subconscious. Abstract thoughts are usually the most powerful, since they allow your own mind to interpret and adapt the idea to your individual needs. This proclamation also makes economic sense, since you do put any money you spend into the economy, and the richer the economy, the more money there is to buy your goods, services, and ideas. 5. Every dollar I bank is accumulated wealth for my personal pleasure. This one will make more sense after you read Chapter 4, Prosperity Banking. Basically, it's a way to change your attitude about saving money, so you have a more direct contact with your money in the bank. A lot of people are programmed to put money away for emergencies, such as a sudden illness. This associates money with pain in your subconscious and is a good way to keep yourself in poverty consciousness. 6, no matter what I do, my financial worth increases every day. This relates to 2 chapters, Work, Love, and Prosperity Banking. In the first, it relates to the fact that as a growing creative person, you produce more valuable ideas each day and so become a more valuable person. In terms of banking, this is true because of interest building up in even a modest bank account. And all of this does happen no matter what you do. 7, all my investments are profitable either in money or valuable experience. This is related naturally to Chapter 5, Prosperity Investing. Many successful investors have related to me tales of how they learned priceless lessons when they lost money on specific investments. In the long term, the sensible investor will gain. The short-term losses that can occur are merely guiding lights pointing out the right direction. One of the investments I lost money on provided the spark that led to one of the valuable concepts I talk about in the investing chapter. But you go into each investment of time, money, or energy with the expectation that you will somehow come out ahead. This means also having an attitude of, if I don't get what I want, it's because something better is waiting for me. If you check out your personal history, you'll find that this has usually been true. An easy way to absorb your 7 prosperity proclamations is to record them and play them back whenever possible. I suggest taping each one 10 times. You might even choose to repeat them along with the recording. Modify them as you please, and even come up with your own when this feels right. A couple of additional hints. When saying them, you might take a deep breath and feel your wealth increasing as you inhale and all your negative programming leaving your consciousness as you exhale. This can be a valuable visualization for you throughout the day, with or without your proclamations. You might say to yourself, with each breath I am increasing my wealth and eliminating my poverty consciousness. Another useful habit is to say silently to each person you meet, you deserve wealth and the fulfillment of your fondest dreams. Time and time again, I've seen it proved that the more you are willing to help others prosper, the more prosperous you will become yourself. You have probably already had some emotional feelings that acted as prosperity proclamations. Have you ever set out to do something and said to yourself, I can do this? That's a way you had of convincing yourself, and it usually worked. I remember one woman saying to me, I always make money on the stock market. That too was a prosperity proclamation, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you see the power of these positive statements, realize that the negative statements you've been saying to yourself and others have just as much power. Just this acknowledgement of their potential for harm will help you eliminate them from your life. Saying, he doesn't deserve that job, I hope he doesn't get it, is a poverty proclamation of the highest order, and it will bounce back into your own subconscious. If for no other reason, avoid these statements to avoid damaging yourself. You are the best equipped person in all the world to program your own brain. Giving up this privilege to others is one of the most damaging things you can do for yourself. Using the prosperity proclamations will help you take charge of your own creative process. You might picture yourself in front of this sophisticated giant computer Programming in important information with confidence, with joy, and with the certainty that the information will result in positive action. And that's the opening chapter of the original MoneyLove, published in 1978. There are a few dated moments, but I think it holds up very well. If you agree, let me know, and thanks for listening. This is Jerry Gillies of MoneyLoveBlog.com.